Nicholas, if you wouldn't mind, please join me on the rooftop. I have a beautiful backdrop up there for us to dance the night away. The city is on fire. Let's talk about Joker. Blah, blah, blah. Ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week, and sometimes Joker 2. Gerald is with you, and of course, over on the other side is the Harlequin to my... I don't know. I don't even know what to fucking say. Nick, how are you, brother? Welcome to the show. No clown makeup for you.
I just want to kiss Shyamalan here. Sorry. No, you... Again, YouTube audience, go over there. We've got
check it out.
The Joker, and I guess one of his Joker goons, M. Night Shyamalan. Dad is now the Joker cowboy.
Yeah.
So I was
that.
like, what can I put in here? What would work best in here? And I thought maybe I was like, I could put Gaga in there next to him, but you would enjoy that way too much. I don't want to do that kind of thing to you.
Yeah,
so,
what did you do that with like MS Paint or something? Did you color that in yourself?
No, I found like a random picture online that was just like the makeup, put it. I probably should have just painted it myself. It probably would have looked as good. Like it's just
about the same. Yeah,
whatever. It is what it is. What's up, baby? How you doing?
It be what it be, man. I'm good, man. I hope you are. We're talking about Joker FOLIE Joker 2, the sequel to the wildly successful Oscar-winning film. From, 2019? I think the first
2019,
one came out.
Yep.
2019, starring Joaquin Phoenix. He finally got his Academy Award for his role as Arthur Fleck in that film. And now we're revisiting that world, going back to it, Mr. Todd Phillips and his follow-up here in 2024. So we will get into it. I will say, before we even say one word about what we thought about the movie, holy discourse online. Oh, my God. There is a lot of chatter, and Twitter is on fire since this movie came out, engulfed in flames, much like the world that the Joker wants to live in. So maybe the joke's on us, but we'll get into Joker 2 here tonight. Nick, before we do that, there's a couple of news stories I wanted to pitch at you to see what you think about these, one of which is kind of interesting. This came out about a week ago prior to the release of Joker 2. It's a segment where we talk about movie news. We call it Spill the Peas.
Oh, no, not the peas. Not the peas. Ah! Ah!
Oh, man, what a sound drop. Who made that?
It's perfect.
It was so
literally
good.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to do this one first. I dropped these to you on Twitter. Daniel Day-Lewis has announced that he is coming out of retirement. He's going to be acting in a new movie that he wrote with his son. Are you a fan of DDL, Daniel Day-Lewis? Some people say the greatest living actor. First of all, what do you think about that? And second of all, are you a fan of his? Are you excited about this?
I mean, he gives great performances. Like, I don't think anybody can really take that away from him. He has a transformative power that I think few other actors have really mastered, where he's able to kind of transform and inhabit a role where you really don't see DDL up there on the screen. I mean, say whatever you will about his quote-unquote method, method acting, never dropping character, even when they yell cut, all that kind of thing. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I'm not an actor, so I don't know how much that might or might not benefit anything. But, I mean, he gives, like I said, he gives really great performances. I love him in, God, what is the Gangs of New York? Loved him in that. He's really good in that. He's amazing as Lincoln in Spielberg's Lincoln. I mean, he's done a lot of really good stuff. There Will Be Blood, masterful performance in that movie. I mean, he has a way of investing you in what he's doing on screen, and I think that's great. This news, however, I
you don't care.
I don't care.
I don't know, man. It's one of those weird things because Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm kind of with you where I've always pretty heavily admired the craft, him, how serious he takes it and the performances that he gives. I mean, he's an Oscar winner. You could tell, the guy's top tier in terms of the craft of acting, but it's not like I'm a super fan where I'm, like if somebody retired and they come back where I would have that moment as a fan where I'll be like, oh my God, I got to go see it day one. I do think it's cool because you don't want those talents to necessarily be wasted. And I also think it's sweet that he co-wrote this with his own kid, and His son's name is Ronan, and Ronan is going to be directing the film, so he's going to be kind of directing his father in this movie. Sean Bean is also going to be in it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but it's going to be called Anemone, I think, is how you pronounce it.
No, I don't know.
It must be someone's name or the name of a location or something like that. I'm not sure, but we don't have a lot of information on the project yet. But I don't know. I think I would much rather live in a world where Daniel Day-Lewis is acting than if he's not acting. I mean, why is he sitting on the couch? I mean, you got this talent. Come on.
Just no more. This is why I don't care. It's because of the whole I'm retiring. This is it. I'm hanging it up after what was it, Phantom Thread or whatever, which he was also good in.
Phantom Thread. Yeah.
You know, like enough of this nonsense. Just quit or don't quit. You know, whatever.
Right.
If he comes back and does this and then gets all sorts of accolades and he's like, I'm retiring again, everybody's just going to be like, sure you are, bud. Like, sure. I just can't wait. I think I mentioned it over the Discord too, but I can't wait for his son to be on set and be like, no, I want to speak to Dad. I don't want to speak to Bob or Tim or whatever the character's name is. Be like, I want to speak to Dad right now.
No,
Dad.
Dad is not here until you wrap the shoot.
Yeah, that's what I literally. That's like I still really loved Tropic Thunder when Robert Downey Jr. really lampooned that. He's like, I don't drop character until the DVD commentary, like kind of poking fun at method acting. Because I'll be honest, I do see it as a little silly, but I mean, again, I'm not an actor, so I can't. Maybe it does help to give a better performance by living in that character somewhat. I don't know necessarily how you could do that, because, I mean, if you're going to walk around set being an asshole to people because you're playing an asshole character in a movie, like, I'd straight kick you in the dick after about a week of it. I'd be like, no, you know what? You're a great artiste and I respect your craft, but shut up. I want to talk to Dan right now, not Bill the Butcher or whatever else, you know?
Sure. Well, we're getting into our Joker 2 discussion tonight, so this one is interesting. Now, on October 3rd, Variety posted an article that kind of got shared all over social media. I got wind of it a couple days ago, and it's titled Toxic Fandom: How Hollywood is Battling Fans Who Are Just Out for Blood, from social media boot camps to superfan focus groups. That was the headline of the article that Variety put out. Like I said, it got picked up by several social media outlets. The basic kind of outline here is that studios are going to be assembling superfan focus groups to assess various materials for franchise projects to avoid any type of social media backlashes after the movies come out. Interesting that I'm going to ask you about this, and we're talking about this on the heels of the Joker 2 release. One producer says, and this kind of sums it up a little bit, he's we don't know who it is. There's no source for who actually said this, but
Shocking.
One of the producers, he says they will just tell us. If you do that, fans are going to retaliate. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, then maybe we can make those kinds of changes. I'm going to pitch it to you. I have a couple thoughts, and I haven't really voiced them yet. What do you think about this whole toxic fandom, fan group, super groups to figure out what fans are going to be pissed about?
Here's
that might be all you need to say.
We all know. Well, yeah, that's pretty much the only reaction that you need. We all have spent time on social media around these types of fandoms: Lord of the Rings fandoms, Star Wars fandoms, Star Trek fandoms. Literally, you name it. There's a toxic discourse around any property, and the problem is there are people who, no matter what you do, are going to hate anything. It's such a broad spectrum of things because there are criticisms that get levied at different franchise projects that come from a good place, you know, that come from a good place. But you also have to swim in the water of, I don't want them to cast that person because they're black, or I don't want them to cast that person because they're a woman, or whatever. Like, stop, blah blah blah. Like, even like in it always, it's so comical to me how it's always like characters who it's completely irrelevant what race or gender or anything they are.
Yeah,
but
right.
you will have people up in arms that cast some random, like, remember the discourse over Michael B. Jordan being cast as the Human Torch in the Fan Four Stick movie. He's probably the best thing about that movie, to be fair, in terms of performances. So it's like you're never gonna please that subset of people, and I mean, no matter who they cast in that movie, it was good. You could have cast the whitest people on the planet to play all those roles, and that movie was still going to be an absolute dumpster fire. So, like, I like the Rings of Power show on Amazon, the Lord of the Rings show that they've been doing, and like you want to try spending some time with a group of toxic fucking people who have no joy in their life. Spend it around Tolkien purists, people who, how dare you change a saintly word from Saint Tolkien's sacred texts that were edited by his kid after he died, and he included multiple versions of different things because who the fuck knows what J.R.R. Tolkien actually wanted. Spend some time around those people and get back to me about whatever. These types of people who literally will absolutely, and it could be the most slight, minute change possible, and they will immediately completely trash everything. It's the worst thing ever. You can't have productive discourse with people like that. So my question to whoever's assembling the focus groups is, how do you weed out those type of people? How do you weed out those type of people? Because again, you cannot satisfy them. They cannot be possibly satisfied. There are people who want Star Wars to just be all white people, no women, no people of color, no people of different ethnicities, just all white people. And that's literally it. And women to just be in like subservient role. How are you pleasing that person? Right. What are you going to do as part of your focus group to placate that? You can't please those people. Like, you literally cannot do it. And it's a space fantasy about people with laser swords. It's a completely made up universe. Hey, newsflash fandoms, all of your shit's all made up. Like, literally, if somebody else makes up something else in the universe, it just makes the universe bigger.
Right. I think it's a horrible idea. I mean, I echo everything you said. I think it's feeding into what social media has kind of become, which is frankly a monster in society. I mean, it's a really ugly thing that exists. There's some obviously good things to use it for, and I'm glad we have it for different things in life, to stay in touch with family and, to donate money when we do live stream for the cure. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that are positive as well, but when you talk about art form and you talk about movies in particular here, why are the movie studios buying into this? Why are they creating this precedent? I think it's very dangerous, and I don't think it's kind of like we talked about when we talked about the AI stuff about 6 months ago when that started kind of ramping up. It's like you need to detach yourself from that, because one of the reasons I love movies, and I assume I speak for you as well, is that the artists behind the camera, the artists in front of the camera, making it their own, telling their own story, maybe using source material to do that, but I don't fucking want a page to screen word for word adaptation of Spider-Man or whatever just because that was the way it was written, in the 70s. Like, they need to have that ability to add those creative touches to it, new characters, maybe he does this instead of doing this, and like, you might not like it. We're going to talk about Joker 2 tonight. I mean, some of the choices that are made, I might not enjoy it as a movie-going audience member, but I respect it a lot more than had it been a very copy and paste, I don't want to piss off anybody that read the comics, so we're going to do the exact same thing in the movie. Because then it's like, why are we making the movie aside from the money aspect? Like, it's just a very dangerous cycle to start getting in. I mean, my point is, what I'm trying to say is, let the filmmakers that the studios are hiring, let them do their job. One of the biggest movies that created discourse in these toxic fandoms was The Last Jedi, Star Wars film that came out that Rian Johnson did. I don't know what it is on Rotten Tomatoes right now, but I bet you it's probably in that 50 to 60 range. It's like half of the people hate it, half of the people love it. And the fan base went fucking, fuck this guy, fuck this movie. You fucked up my Luke Skywalker. That's not my Luke. I mean, to this day, they're still pissed about that movie. And it's like Ryan Johnson did something extremely creative with it and basically added another layer and another element to this character that we had never seen, that had frankly been a one-note character. I'm talking about Luke Skywalker, really the whole saga for the most part. And he gave him different abilities, different traits, different reasons for us to sympathize with him and hate him at times that we had never really had before as a viewer of the Star Wars films. I'm using that one as an example, but you could, you talked about Lord of the Rings. I mean, you could put anything to fill in the blank there. I just think that the movie studios hire the director, whether it's Ryan Johnson or whoever it is. Here, this is the screenplay, but this is your project. We want your vision of this on camera, and that should be enough. And if I don't like it as a common sense fan, or if Brent in his basement at his mom's house that does nothing but watch Star Wars shit doesn't like it, then fine. He doesn't like it, but it's still a new creation, something new that people are gonna like. I can assure you of that. It might not be the toxic fans, but people are going to create that as part of the canon and treat it as such. So I think it's a horrible thing for them to be attempting to do here. I just don't really see what the benefit, even if they have these focus groups, Nick, and these fans come in and they say, oh, you got to change this, or she would never marry him, and you can't do that, and all. And they do all that, and they fix all that. Then what are we doing? We're servicing the fans that are the toxic fans, but what are we doing beyond that? You know what I mean? Like, our everyday Joe's not going to appreciate it as much, because it's not going to be a unique story. It's not going to be an organic story. I think it's a horrible idea. I mean, I'm sorry to get off on a tangent there, but when I read this, I thought it was a joke at first.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, even if you somehow find a way to filter out the people who are just going to create toxic discourse no matter what you do, even if you do bring in people that have good faith, criticisms about certain things, everybody's got different interpretations of different things. If it's an adaptation, different people interpret different things different ways in whatever author's works, because everyone, like, art kind of lies with the beholder. Art kind of lies with the audience once it's released away from the artist, and everybody interprets and kind of pulls their own meaning out of it and reflect. I mean, that's what we do with movies. That's what we do when we review movies. Our movie reviews, in a way, are a reflection of who we are as people, our values, the things that we value in a cinematic product, the things that we find important. If you put me on a focus group, like, this about me, you haven't reviewed movies with me for this long. Like, I'm a character guy. Like, I need compelling, well-drawn characters to be really, really invested in something. And if I don't have those, I'm going to need something like, think of Dunkirk, Nolan's Dunkirk, which I absolutely adore. Masterpiece. My favorite Nolan movie still. I love that movie. It doesn't have any real, I mean, it has kind of sketches of characters, but it's a different kind of movie. But generally speaking, if a movie doesn't have, like, really well-drawn characters, I'm going to knock it. And if it does have really well-drawn characters, I'm going to find something to celebrate more in that. You put me on that focus group, I'm going to push that, because that's the kind of thing that's important to me, that's the kind of thing that I value. Well-rounded characters, adding more character traits to things, not doing stupid things as character, like all those kinds of different things. Everybody interprets things a different way. You mentioned The Last Jedi. It's interesting. You think about even the discourse that was had back in the day. Well, even Mark Hamill disagreed with Ryan Johnson about Luke Skywalker, and Ryan Johnson's like, no, but this is what we're doing, and that's the role that Hamill played in that movie and everything. But I personally, I love The Last Jedi because it pushes the envelope and it gives you a character who's, like, deeply in conflict and all those kinds of different things. I don't want Luke to just be drawn as a completely blank slate. He's nothing but a straight up hero. But again, that's what I want. That's what you want.
Well, that's the choice that you can make as the viewer after seeing that piece of art that Johnson and the people involved created. That's my point. Whereas if he was just buying into what the toxic fans want, which in most cases is just a recreation of what they know already.
Yeah, that's the biggest question is how do you form the focus group to not fill it with the toxic portions of fandom, the portions of fandom that are completely unrealistic and unreasonable in their ask and things like that. You know, how do you placate those people while also doing service to art and doing service to, telling a compelling story and doing all these kinds of different things. I mean, I feel like it's just either they're not going to have any effect at all. This is one of two ways I see this playing out. They're not going to have any effect at all, and they're going to be meaningless because the studio's not going to listen to them, or you're going to get toxic elements that are going to creep in there, and then we're not trying anything different, then we're not trying anything new, then we're not casting a Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch, even though the Human Torch's race is meaningless to the character.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But like, we cast a great actor to play this role, and they did a really great job at it. But we can't do that. Like, I see it. I don't see it being beneficial until you show me. I mean, and it's all reactionary because we don't know how they form these focus groups or anything and how they would. But that's my question: is like, tell me how they're going to form the focus groups. Tell me who's going to form the focus groups. Like, you know what I want? I want you to find the Twitter handle of every person you're going to put on the focus group. And if they've ever just been an online piece of shit, they don't get to be part of the focus group.
Right.
That's what I want. I'd be like, all right, you could like. You could try out for the Star Wars focus group, Gerald.
But I mean,
you got to give me your Twitter handle, and I want to read all of your past tweets. And if you're on there complaining about a black stormtrooper or whatever, then you don't get to be part of the focus group.
No, fair enough. But I mean, Nick, let me ask you. I mean, why? Okay, so the MCU specifically, as of late, has been, with the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, has been struggling. Like they've been trying to kind of find the magic that they had up until Avengers Endgame and the whole initial Avengers storyline, which kind of started with Iron Man, right? So they've been kind of looking for that, but it's like, why are we doing this? Like, what is the point of servicing this group of people that are constantly pushing back at everything that we're creating? And I'm obviously using the MCU as an example, but you could really say anything here. Like, Hollywood has always done test screenings, right? So they put out test screenings for the general public. It doesn't matter. They just invite people, critics, whatever.
I mean, test audiences don't always know shit either. I mean, I still,
exactly.
To this day, I'm still so angry about the ending of I Am Legend that they changed and was just like, no, just have Will Smith blow them all up.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Shit.
I guess I'm just struggling to see what the desperation hand out to the toxic fandom here is. Like, I don't understand. Kind of like what you said, I don't see any kind of really silver lining to this.
Gerald, just take your thumb and your two fingers and just rub them together like this for me.
I mean, yeah.
That's it. That's the only reason why. They're
so hollow anyway.
When you get these toxic elements out there, and all they do is just drag this thing. Like, eventually what you start to do is you start to drive people away from the thing. You start to, some people are gullible, and some people will read some really trash negative thing about, like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. This is terrible. This is blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna bother with it,
Yeah.
and they won't really look into it any further. And I mean, bottom line is, I mean, the studio thinks that they can somehow find a way to stop that hemorrhage, stop that bleed a little bit, and maybe make some of these properties a little bit more of a box office success or something like that again. Then that's what they're looking for,
Yeah, you might be right. It's just in the last 10 years or so, the whole social media just toxicity around it when it comes to movie criticism really bums me out. I mean, because you and I do a movie podcast, so that's not the funnest thing in the world to have to deal with, but it's like, I'm just telling people what I think about a movie. I feel like it's getting harder in today's day and age to be like, I didn't like this movie because, and here's my opinion, and this is what I think. And then Nick comes along and he's like, oh, but I loved it, and this is why I loved it. And you give your opinion. It's just getting harder to do that because now it's like, oh, well, you didn't like it. You're a fucking idiot. You suck. You don't know anything about movies. or you like that, like, what? That was the worst thing in the fucking world. I don't trust you. This popular movie critic that I follow online, Sean Fennessy, he put out this article about Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan film, who's behind you as a clown face back there somewhere. There he is. And he talked about the kind of interesting themes in that movie, even though he didn't really like the film. I think he gave it like a pretty mediocre score, but he talked about interesting themes in it that he wished had been elaborated on. And anyway, he got all these like death tweets like, fuck you, I'm never listening to you again, all this shit. And it's just like, dude, he's just giving you what he thought. And going back to a time in the 80s when I watched Siskel and Ebert, like, I didn't agree with those guys maybe half the time, but like, I enjoyed the art form of them giving me their opinion and the critical kind of dance that I would have with them over a project. And now it's just like, we just can't do that in our society. And I think social media has really taken that to a place that's really unfortunate. And I think that this article that I brought up from Variety that we're talking about is horrible. And I hope that it doesn't get very far with some of these franchises because, what are we doing? I mean, Reddit is making movies now. I guess I don't know.
I mean, it's a double. It's a double-edged sword with everything that you mentioned too, because there's as little value, I think, in just, you better hate this too because I hated it. There's as little value in you better love this because I love this too as well. Like there's a toxic positive aspect to that too.
Sure, yeah.
Like I feel like some people come at me like sometimes because I don't like something that is popular, like a Dune or like a whatever. Like it wasn't for me, and I got people coming at, like, you come at me personally over me not liking, the Sandworm movie, like, sorry, like,
yeah,
I'm not talking about you. Yeah. I'm not talking about you because I know you just.
No, I'm coming after you about it. Yeah, no, I'm definitely
you do it to
coming
give me
after
shit. But, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking. I'm saying that in general. Like, there's a flip side to that as well. And like, I mean, it's just the whole thing goes to like, what's good, what's a good positive interaction, even if that's what I always try to do. And maybe I don't always hit that mark, and maybe the audience doesn't like it or whatever, but like, I always try to hit that mark of like, even if I don't like something, I want you to understand why I don't like it and why if you love it, that's cool. Like you do
Great.
you.
Yeah.
If you hate it more than I do, that's cool too. Like whatever your reaction is to it, like that's great. I want you to react how you want to react to art and feel genuine in that, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from with it too, And
right. No, I agree with you.
I think even if you don't like a movie, I feel that's positive discourse. And I really struggle with people who think negative movie reviews. And I mean, I don't know what we're going to talk about when we talk about Joker 2 in a second here, but I really hate the idea that some people have that a negative movie review is in itself negative discourse. If I'm sending Joaquin Phoenix death messages or, saying, how could you think this is good? You're a stupid piece of shit. You're whatever slur you want to throw in there. Like, that's bad. That's toxic. That's terrible. You should never do that.
Right.
Sure. But if I have a good faith reason why I just didn't like something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, dude, I mean, this is our relationship, you and I mean, is perfect kind of analogy to what I'm talking about, because you break my heart week after week after week after week on this fucking show. I mean, just last week you gave my fucking Beetlejuice that I hold so close to my heart, the sequel, a 3, I think you gave it.
You just reminded me of it, so now my score just dropped to -12.
Gerald's juice, So, I mean, I live that on a weekly basis with you, but I still love you. Like, I'm not like, Nick, you're a fucking piece of shit. You don't know what you're talking. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear the criticisms that you have for it. And honestly, sometimes when you have those criticisms, it makes me reflect on my love of a film or vice versa. So that's the point, is like, and I'm not comparing film criticism to politics, but it's similar, where it's like we're just so set in our beliefs of something that we're not even willing to hear
Man, one more month
another
until
angle.
the election's over. Thank God, Jesus Christ!
I know. Oh
can't
my
deal
God.
with it.
All right. Well, sorry we got off on a tangent there about social media toxicity, but
I'm
it is
not,
what it
because
is.
it kept us from having to talk about Joker 2.
Oh boy! All right. So every week, guys, thank you for listening. Spill the peas there, and let us know what you guys think seriously about that. I think it's a horrible idea. Hopefully, it doesn't go very far, but we'll see.
I'm just baffled
Joker.
as to how I want an application to join a focus group, not because I want to join a focus group, because I'm an idiot. Nobody wants to hear the things I have to say. Jesus, but I want to know how they're going to vet, the people that are like,
I know.
I hate black people out of the focus group, to be like, well, here's this Jedi we're thinking about creating this character as this really cool character. It's going to be a young black man. No. Like, how I want to know how you're going to keep those people out of there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the funnier tweets I saw after this news story broke was like, okay, the first focus group met, and here's the new Black Panther, and it was Ryan Gosling in the Black Panther costume. Oh, man. So, yeah, just shit like that. It's just going to be hard to get away from. All right. Every week, guys, we focus on one film, and we give you our main review, which tonight is Joker Folie à Deux, the wildly successful original film from 2019. This is the follow-up sequel to that by Todd Phillips. But before we get into the full-blown review, we'd like to tell you our score out of 10. We have not discussed it with each other yet, and we're going to tell you that, and then we'll talk about why we arrived at that number. It's what we call the early score reveal, Nick.
You could ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
No, because you will not kill my sound.
Oh, you're going to ask me a question?
I love that. Why do you want to take my joy away, Gerald, is my question. By trying to steal the sound drop away from it. Here's the thing.
We got to figure out a way to
question.
use that.
Here's the thing about One Big Question. Yaney asked a question so bad that Gerald said, no, we're not doing it anymore. We're throwing this segment out the window. Yaney asked a question so bad.
Yaney. Classic Yaney. What was it? It has something to do with angels with dirty faces, didn't it?
Yeah, it's up to angels, dirty faces, blah, blah, blah. Early score reveal, baby.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score and then I never score. It's not fair.
My question to you, Gerald, is what is your rating of Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo?
3, 2, 1 out of 10 is a 4 out of 10 from me, and it's the actual Joker card from Nick.
Oh God. Oh, sorry.
Which that could be anything. I don't know. Ooh, a 3 from you. Wow,
I just had to get I just had to pull the same. I just still have this out from Beetlejuice, and I didn't feel like changing it.
4 and a 3, which is 3.5, right? Out of 10 total. Nick, is that the only card you have? Because you've been using that 3 quite a lot lately. Joker Folie à Deux, or like I say, Joker Folie of Poo-Poo is what we're talking about. Nick, this thing, man, there's what I will say about this film by Todd Phillips, even more so than the first film, is that there are a lot of layers to this movie that I feel like we'll get into, especially when we get on the spoiler side. But he did give us a lot to talk about. It is a very interesting film, I will say. It is a very interesting film. It's shot beautifully. Technically, there's nothing about it that I would really give a negative word to from a technical perspective. So I am excited to talk to you about it, especially when we get in depth. But it looks like you and I are pretty similar eye to eye here on our score, at least. Joker Folie à Deux, why did it miss with you, generally speaking?
I mean, it's just a continuation of all the things I hated about the first movie. I mean, I really, really, really did not like the first movie. Like, yeah, Phoenix's performance is good, but I hate this bleak worldview that Todd Phillips seems to have in this movie and in the first movie, where there's no good characters. There's no character literally that's got even a shred of decency or integrity or whatever. I really, really hate this kind of cynicism, and I really hate that aesthetic to the film, first of all. And this film misses, I think, even more, because it's like, you're going to make it a musical and you're going to have musical numbers and things like that. Okay, I love musicals. So when I heard that they were making it a musical, I was like, Todd Phillips going to do some batshit crazy stuff, and this is going to be like Joker dancing around doing all sorts of whatever. So who knows? Like whatever, I'm there for it. You get Gaga in as Harley Quinn, and I'm like even more there for it because I love Gaga, and I'm like I'm so there for it. But I'm watching this movie, and I don't find Arthur Fleck to be a particularly sympathetic protagonist. I don't really care about his journey whatsoever, and I don't feel like I know him or that I understand him maybe enough as a character to really be invested in watching his journey or seeing his journey unfold. And I think this film takes some wild turns, especially when we get to the last act of the film. Lady Gaga is completely wasted in this. I mean, you get to hear Lady Gaga sing, which is always a treat.
Yeah.
That's probably what all three of my points are for, is just Lady Gaga singing.
But not to her full level, though. I mean, she never really opens. I mean, she has that one number on the rooftop that I joked about in the cold open that was pretty good. But, I mean, she's kind of like whisper talking most of these songs. Yeah, I mean, it was weird that you didn't use her to her level of talent because – especially with these old numbers. She did the album with Tony Bennett, with those old standards and stuff. Like, I mean, she's got to love this era of music, and just to not, like, let her be full Gaga, it was just such a weird choice to me that they kept her kind of restrained. And that was one of the things I hated about this, is that she was just unfathomably underused in this film. I mean, it was just horrible.
I would absolutely agree. I think it's weirdly even if you view it as a pure musical, it's weirdly staged in terms of a musical, because I'm not Paul from the Countdown. I don't just hate musicals just because I hate musicals. Like musicals, oftentimes the music is what's telling the story. The music is what's substituting in for the narration in the film, and the music is what's telling you the story, telling you plot beats, telling you character beats, doing all those kinds of different things. If there's a confession of love between two characters, and I mean, this film does have some of that, like a little bit of it, but most of the musical numbers that are in this seem pointless to the plot. Like, it doesn't seem like the plot
100%.
really needs them, which is kind of the worst kind of musical to make. So it's like, if you're going to swing for the fences and you're going to try to make this a musical, then give me an exploration of Arthur Fleck and maybe the romance between Joker and Harley. Give me all of that kind of different stuff as, give it to me as nothing but musical numbers. But most of the musical numbers in this movie are just fantasy. They're just in his head.
Yeah.
They're just in his imagination, and they don't have any bearing on the plot or anything whatsoever. And it's like, we'll talk about it when we get into spoilers. I want to get Dan in here, do the whole Patreon thing, and then we're going to tear down
Let
the
me just
spoiler
say
wall.
real
We're going
quick.
to come back.
Let me say real quick.
Let
me say real quick before we do that, though, for my general thing. This movie, Joker FOLIE I Do, is like the movie equivalent of, like, this could have been an email. Like, I mean, it was just so droll and drab. And what I think, before we get into spoilers in a second, what I think is kind of funny at the same time is that Todd Phillips made this film, and a lot of the critiques that you and I are probably going to have tonight, and that a lot of people have been having since the movie came out, he's probably going, you're right. You're 100% right. He hates us. Todd Phillips, when I watch this movie, I'm going, Todd Phillips hates this audience. He hates the toxic fans that we were talking about a minute ago. He hates these kind of expectations that are set by popular culture. And he did not conform to any of that in this movie. I mean, but does that mean I like it? No, I didn't like it. And that's the problem. It's like, I can appreciate why he was doing what he was doing as a filmmaker, but I still didn't enjoy it. And we'll talk a little bit about, or a lot more about it when we get into spoilers. Dan, roll it. We'll be right back with our spoiler talk on Joker FOLIE I Do.
Welcome back, everybody, to 1, 2. Sorry, I had to count Gerald. 1, 2 P's on a podcast. We're talking about Joker FOLIE I Do.
FOLIE of poo-poo.
Whatever. I still don't know. What's the title mean? What is the title even supposed to mean?
Shared madness in French. Let's start there. Why did he incorporate French into the title? There's nothing French in this movie at all.
Because it sounds pretentious.
Yeah, it means the madness of two. So that's what it translates to in
Okay.
French. Shared
Sure.
madness. Whatever. All right, we're into spoiler talk here, guys. So as Nick said pre-break, we will now be spoiling the hell out of this thing. If you have not seen the sequel, Joker 2, Folie à Deux, then do not listen to the rest of this podcast. Come back after you have seen it. So we start out, Nick, it's kind of like a prison film, right? It starts out, well, first of all, you want to talk about that weird animation opening. Did you like that? I hated that thing. I've heard people enjoyed it, but I didn't like it. I was like, what the? I thought it was like another trailer at first. It was so weird.
It was a choice.
Yeah,
We live
I
in a
didn't like
society. It was just a, I don't know. It was,
that. Oh,
it
well,
wasn't,
What the fuck?
I mean, it was,
It's fine. Sure.
I don't know. I don't even know. It was kind of a, I don't know.
I didn't like it. Because you have that kind of like upbeat, animated, like it was the old Looney Tunes style Warner Brothers cartoons, like almost like a Bugs Bunny type cartoon, and Joker's battling with his shadow, and it's all like high energy, upbeat, bright colors, and then it literally cuts to a fucking like prison drama, the most bleak setting, all grays, it's pouring down rain, just a horrible transition. I felt like, in my opinion, I just didn't like it, and we have this kind of opening in the prison, and we see Arthur Fleck, obviously, and he's there. He's awaiting trial for the murders from the first film. He killed 5 people at the end of the first Joker as the Joker, and he's kind of awaiting trial for that. So what we get in this movie is kind of a weird blend of that prison drama, courtroom drama, kind of a pseudo love story with him and Harley Quinn, as psychotic as it might be. And then a few like sprinkled in kind of elements of the Batman lore and comic book stuff. Like we see the Wayne building in this movie, and for all intents and purposes, we see Two-Face in this movie for a brief couple seconds. Obviously the Joker is prominent here, so Harley Quinn. It's weird to sit here and ask you this question, because I'm about to ask you when you kind of gave up on this film, but it's weird to ask you that because this is one of those watches for me. I went with my daughter to see this on Thursday night. We were out of town in Nashville, Tennessee, and I said, hey, I'm reviewing Joker with my buddy on this weekend. You want to go see it? Now, she's a 23-year-old recently graduated film student who actually really liked this movie, and she did not like the first one. I say really liked, but I should say she kind of liked it. I think she gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd. And we're having a conversation after. I'm like, I just don't get it. Maybe it's an age thing, because she's 23, I'm 48. I don't know, but like, this is one of those watches. And then I want to ask you, I never really gave up on this movie. It's weird. Like I kind of watched the whole thing, kind of. Something interesting would happen, or Gaga would do something I would like, or there would be this kind of like callback that I'd be like, ooh, okay, so Phillips is going to do this now, and I was kind of always there, but then when I left, I was just so much like, oh, like I got nothing from that. But a lot of times a movie will lose me at some point in the movie, and then it'll have to win me back. You know what I mean? This movie never really lost me until I left, and I was just like, I just didn't enjoy that. It was just a horrible experience. What about for you? What were you feeling throughout the course of the film? Like, when did it lose you? Because obviously you gave it 3.
From the really early, like
Okay.
this was a slog to sit through. I mean, like I said, in a normal musical, and I guess the thing that I really disliked about it the most was, if you're going to be a musical, then the musical has to tell the story. The music has to tell the story. The music has to be what, because obviously you're replacing a lot of dialogue, you're replacing a lot of exposition on screen, plot, all that kind of stuff, and you're replacing it with song that is supposed to fill that in. And like I said, I think a lot of the musical numbers in this don't really do anything to advance the plot necessarily. Mm-hmm. I don't think, now, on its surface, and even digging a little bit deeper below its surface, this is kind of an exploration of the the Joker, versus like the idea of the Joker, or like the iconography of the Joker, or whatever. And I don't think it does anything meaningfully. I don't think it does anything meaningful with Arthur in terms of character deconstruction. Like it wants to kind of try to deconstruct that Joker mythos a little bit, right? I don't think it does anything meaningful to deconstruct that until well into the third act. Arthur is just kind of there in this movie, just kind of going through the motions and everything. Like we don't get, like, if you want to have him reach the point where he reaches in the courtroom. So fast forward to like the third act of this movie, and there's other problems we got to go all around here, but there's another inmate at the asylum that we don't get to know all that well. We just see him briefly. I think the kid's name was Billy. I don't even know.
Ricky.
Ricky,
so, that's right.
The guards end up killing this kid who won't stop singing when he sees Arthur all beaten up and everything like that. And so for whatever reason, this is the moment that Todd Phillips chooses to have Arthur finally break and be like, I got to wash my hands of all this. I got to step away from all of it. I'm not the Joker. Like, I'm not this person. You know, like, because he finally he doesn't see it any of the time during the first movie when he's gunning people down left and right on national television or anything like that. This one moment here is the first like actual character evolution he has when Ricky gets killed, and he finally realizes that this idea of him as a person, as a character, it's hurting people. And for some reason, that's the point where he finally has a little bit of a break. For whatever reason, like, why were all the musical numbers, even if they're going to be fantasy, that's fine if they're going to be fantasy, but use them to start building up that myth kind of in his head. Use them to start kind of building up. Maybe if because at first he kind of reassumes the Joker persona, which is the most batshit lunacy kind of thing in the world, that they would ever let him represent himself and dress up and paint his face as a clown
the Joker
in court. It's the most ridiculous. Like it's
that was stupid.
It's a Fridge Too Far movie. I'm sorry, you just nuked the fridge. Indiana Jones is sailing through the desert right now. I'm sorry. Like that reaches a point of ridiculousness, but he kind of gets to this point where he has re-embraced this persona, this idea of the Joker and this like larger than life kind of persona, until he sees, well, he doesn't see it, but he hears it, until Ricky gets killed. And then he realizes that this mythos that has been built up around him is hurting people, and then he stops it or whatever. But you've never shown us.
Yeah, I've never seen any of that morality prior to that. Yeah.
Yeah, where is any of that prior to that? It seems like such a quick swerve to take with it. And then like it kind of, you want to portray Arthur as this really mentally disturbed, mentally ill person, but then all of a sudden it's like he's complete clarity after that point. It's like, yep, this is me. Like it's like
right.
all that whole facade of everything kind of disappears.
Because the movie, kind of what you're talking about, the movie, Catherine Keener's character, she plays his attorney, Arthur's attorney. And the kind of plot of the movie for like 80% of the film really is the defense that he's a split personality essentially, and that he was the Joker when he did all those killings in the first film. He wasn't Arthur, you know, and kind of trying to prove that throughout the movie, mostly through his defense or whatever. And we never really find out if Arthur thinks that also, or if he's just kind of playing along to get off. So I agree with you that what was kind of, I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but what was kind of disappointing was that Todd Phillips played with a lot of those themes and those thematic elements that you're mentioning, like mental illness and how we as a society lift up these like serial killers and like, you know, true crime podcasts and everything else. And it's like we kind of like idolize these people that, you know, their morals are less than stellar. And there's a lot of those themes in there, but he never does anything with them. Like, we never take it past the surface level of like, hey, here's this idea. All right, that's it. And you put a period on it. And you never really wrap that kind of commentary up. And I don't know if that was deliberate, that he was just kind of throwing them at us and letting us kind of wrap them up in our heads. But I wish that he would have chosen a path to kind of go on. I think Lady Gaga is interesting here. I'm going to talk about her a little bit, Nick. I think she's kind of interesting for a lot of reasons in this movie. And I'll use kind of what I'm talking about as a platform to go into other things about her performance, but as Harley Quinn. But, you know, she is kind of that conduit for what I'm talking about, because she doesn't really love Arthur, right? She loves the idea of the Joker, and she is attracted to kind of the icon that this guy has become since, you know, killing De Niro on national television and the whole, you know, media circus that ensued. She's attracted to that. You know, they mentioned about a TV movie that came out about him, and she watched it, you know, 20 times or whatever. So she's kind of attracted to the idea, and that's kind of what my daughter said at the end of the movie. She was like, there is no Joker. Like, the idea of the Joker is what society is attracted to. It's what we want. We want the chaos, and we want the serial killers to listen to podcasts about and watch documentaries about, and, like, you know, we don't necessarily care about the person that's wearing that mask so much as the mask itself, you know. And I really like that Phillips had that kind of thought to kind of play it that way, but it just goes so empty. Like, it just falls so flat because he never does anything with it aside from letting it play out in a very monotone kind of like, all right, you know, this is this. Who we thought was the Joker in the first. You know, what also has kind of pissed me off a little bit too, Nick, is that I was somewhat excited for this film because I didn't like the first film, but I loved the last act of the first film. Like, I really liked it when Arthur was in full costume and he kind of snapped and he did become the Joker and he started fucking going on a spree, and like I loved the ending. It was bloody. It was crazy. It was like so much different than the beginning of that film. I really liked the last 20 minutes or so of the original Joker in 2019. So I thought, okay, if we could pick up where we left off there and we get that chaos and we get that mayhem and he's the Joker and he's fucking, you know, Batman's going to have to come in and fucking save the day or whatever. We don't. We get a very quiet, gray, toned down courtroom drama. I mean, really. And talk about Gaga a little bit. I wanted to transition to that, and I want to hear what you had. I think she was, we kind of already touched on this, I think she was super underused musically. Yes, but like, with the exception of one or two outbursts, I mean, we don't really get the Gaga that we needed in this movie to have any kind of saving grace, I don't think.
I think the sad thing about it is I think that character and I think that role is really, really, really underwritten. I mean, ignoring any other depictions of Harley Quinn or anything like that you can see in media, there's no real weight to her. She doesn't really have any depth or any weight as a character, literally whatsoever. She's just obsessed with the idea of the Joker. And we never get any more depth to that character. And I don't know. I wanted to maybe, like, if you're gonna make a movie about the idea of the Joker being bigger than the person that it was based on, like the kind of myth of the Joker growing out to be a bigger thing, like, I want an exploration of that through her character. Then we don't get that. Like, we just get, like, you literally can write her character description off with a single sentence. She's obsessed with the idea of the Joker. That's it. That's literally all she brings to this movie in terms of how the character's written for the page. I don't think Gaga's bad in it. I think Gaga's swinging for the fences, doing her best she can, both with the music stuff and with the acting performance. I think she's given it her level best, but I just don't think there's anything there for the character on the page to really sink your teeth into. And can I ask you a very, very serious question, Gerald?
Of course.
A very serious question.
We'll play the sound drop and then you can.
Okay, hang on. Wait a minute. Gerald, I gotta ask you one big
Anytime
question.
you ask
buddy.
me a question. Yeah.
There you go.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
You gotta play it every time you ask me a serious question.
He gets thrown in the hole, solitary
Right.
confinement, and she somehow is able to get into solitary confinement. Oh, I talked to a guard and he let me in. to solitary confinement, and then they fuck in the cell. Like I was really waiting. I was really waiting for this movie to get to the ending and for him to wake up like in an electric chair, and this was his whole fantasy of like his last days playing out in his head, and none of it was real. That would have made a more compelling ending to like all this weird lunacy stuff that happens. She randomly happens to get into solitary with him, and then paints the Joker makeup on him while they're humping.
Yeah. A couple things I want to say about that scene. So, and this kind of goes along with it. I think Todd Phillips is saying the whole time, Arthur Fleck is a loser. He's a guy who committed these crimes. We should not feel sorry for him. He's a piece of shit. He's a bad person, you know? And he is guilty of what he's on trial for. We get to that scene, and the first thing Phoenix says is he wakes up and he goes, "Are you really here?" You know, because he's been in there for however many days, and he's probably losing his mind, starving, whatever, and he sees Lady Gaga in front of him, like, oh my God, am I dreaming, you know? And I think it was real. I think she actually was there, and I think they
it was
actually
for
did
sure
have
real.
sex.
I'm not questioning whether or not it was real.
Yeah, I think that I'm not either, but I think that you could if you really wanted to kind of say, okay, maybe he was just a little fucked up and out of his mind at that moment. But if it is real, which I also think it was, and she, you know, knowingly and purposefully stops him when he's about to penetrate her and puts the makeup on and makes him the Joker. Again, this goes back to the point that Harley loves the Joker, not the person portraying the Joker. You know, she doesn't give a shit about Arthur Fleck and his issues and, you know, whatever. And when Arthur eventually comes to the realization, I don't want to be the Joker anymore. I'm not the Joker. I'm just me. You know, I'm just this dude that killed these people, put on this makeup. She leaves the courtroom. You know, it essentially breaks up with him and fucking, you know, doesn't want to have anything else to do with him. But I think that, I don't know, I think Gaga could have, in a weird way, because we have that scene where when Joker beats the dude's head, beats the judge with the gavel, you know, and he has that musical number in the courtroom, which was one of my favorite ones that they did as far as musicals go. And Harley's watching it on TV at like a department store, and she breaks the glass and takes the TV with her because she's so attracted to what she's seeing on film. And there was hints of that Harley Quinn character from the comics and from, you know, even Margot Robbie's portrayal, where like she's a crazy fucking maniacal sex pot, like she's insane, you know what I mean? And Harley in this movie is just so restrained. And to have a performer like Gaga playing her makes it doubly worse. Like, we saw that Phillips knew that she could come out of that shell and be this really high energy, psychotic, you know, off the walls character, but she never was in this movie. And then to Arthur Fleck's character, he's not either, because he's kind of given up the Joker mantle in this movie. I want to fast forward a little bit, because we got to wrap up soon anyway, but to the final act of the film. And I want to ask, because you just saw this recently, it's fresh in your mind. I had bits of excitement when somebody blows up the courtroom where he's having his trial. And to make a long story short, Arthur Fleck, who was there, ends up coming to and escaping, okay? As he's escaping the demolished area of Gotham, he sees Harvey Dent, who was the prosecutor in this case, for like 2 seconds looks like Two-Face. Half of his face is, what do you call it?
Like scarred, yeah.
Yeah, like scarred or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, so we see that, and I'm like, okay, there's fucking Two-Face. That's a comic thing. That's a comic reference. And then Joker kind of stumbles out onto the street, and he ends up getting picked up by these fans that were dressed like Joker that were there outside of the courtroom, and they take him in his car. So that could be the starting of the Joker gang, I'm thinking. So I was like, really kind of like, Todd Phillips is going to fucking come out of nowhere and turn this into an actual Batman movie. Like, we're going to get some fucking crazy shit here. But instead, what we get is him, Arthur Fleck, the Joker, running away from all that, right? Running to the steps that are infamous in these two movies and goes up to Gaga, Harley Quinn, and essentially they break up right there at that spot. She's singing to him, and he's like, don't sing. I fucking don't want you to sing anymore, which is kind of what we're saying as audience. So fucking this nuts with the songs. What do you think? I mean, did you have any hope that Todd Phillips is going to do some kind of quote-unquote Batman tie-in here at the end of this film?
No.
Did you get that too or not?
No, because Bruce Wayne is like still a child, and because he was a child in the last movie, and this
He
is only
is.
2 years later. So number one, I knew that was never going to happen. Number two, I hated that whole. It's so really poorly. Like, if you put Harley in there as part of it, if you let me see, like, I mean, great, it was a surprise to me when it happened as an audience member, but like. It's so poorly planned. Like, that could have just very easily killed him anyway. Like, it's just really poorly planned. And then he's the only one that moves in that entire courtroom. You want to tell me that a bomb goes off outside of that building and blows a hole in the wall? You're at a courthouse where there are police and everything, especially for a high-profile trial like this. There are police and stuff everywhere. Not a single person ran into that courtroom and was like, what's going on? He just gets up very slowly, very shakily, and stumbles his way outside and runs off. It's the most, like, that's this, it seems like that. It seems like Gaga showing up to solitary confinement and banging him in solitary, and it seems like him, like, basically putting on the cartoonish country southern lawyer stereotype when he's questioning the little person up there on the stand.
Yeah,
which
what
is
was that? He was like,
that's probably the hardest scene to watch in this movie, when he's just being like an absolute shitheel to this poor little person who is scared, like terrified for his life after what he witnessed in the first movie. Like, it's like all those different things are a fridge too far. Like, you're in a comic book world, like, I get it, and you got to be flexible with the bounds of reality and stuff, but you have to still apply some semblance of logic to the proceedings here. You want me to believe that no cop would have wandered into that courtroom after that bomb went off? Literally everybody that could have possibly stopped Arthur from getting away. Like, I get it, you have to have him escape to continue the rest of the movie, and have him show up on the steps when, of course, Gaga was there. Makes literally no sense to me. She should have just literally walked off away from him, and they never should have had a scene together again after that. Like, because that was like that. I was already rolling my eyes really hard from him magically being the only person to walk away from the bombing of the courthouse, and then, like, even more so when he gets to the stairs, and of course she's just sitting there at the stairs just waiting for him. Like, you know, like, no, it was a fridge too far for me. Like I said, it just no.
all right, well, before we get to our Mount Rushmore of Mr. Joaquin Phoenix, what about the end? So Gaga leaves him, and basically he gets recaptured, and he's back in prison again. And one of the guards comes up to him and says, "Hey, Arthur, you got a visitor." Okay, he's like, "All right, so whatever." So he goes to meet the visitor, and another inmate who we had not really seen prior to this comes up to him and starts telling him a joke. And the joke ends with essentially him stabbing Arthur to death, presumably. Arthur's on the ground, bleeding out, and in the background, in a blurry background, we can see the guy that stabbed him carving the Joker's smile into his face with the instrument that he used to stab him with, laughing kind of maniacally. And that's essentially how the movie ends. I don't like it, man. I mean, I get it. I mean, I get what Phillips is doing. He's basically, Philip, it's funny because I want to give the guy a hug, honestly, because Todd Phillips made this movie that the Academy praised, that Hollywood embraced. Joaquin Phoenix won an Academy Award for it, and he fucking burned all that shit to the ground, bro. He was just like, fuck all that. Fuck that whole movie. None of that movie was real. The Joker's not real. He's dead right here on the ground of this jail. Anybody can be the Joker.
But here's even my score not aside though, but that's where I disagree with you. The Joker's not dead because that's what the ending of the movie means. It's the personification.
No, I mean that's what I mean. The dude playing the Joker
of the Joker myth.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
That's what it is. Like because like the other inmate who presumably would then go on to become the Batman's Joker,
right?
Like who whatever. Like that's like the myth is now bigger than the man. Like you cannot kill them. Like that at that point, it's like you can't kill the myth of the Joker. At this point, Arthur's only standing in the way, and like now we have the actual personification of the myth claiming that away from him. Like I love that idea. I really love that idea, but I wish that this film would have spent more time. If you want to construct this character, this is kind of the thing I'll wrap up on here. The whole first movie is about Arthur's breakdown and him assuming this Joker mantle and everything like that. It's kind of building up this character, constructing the character. And if this is supposed to be a deconstruction of that character, then I needed to see that through this whole movie. And like literally, it's like, think of, I'll bring up one of the Star Wars prequels here, because Lucas had said at one point in the history, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember like the exact quote or whatever, but like I think the first two prequel movies is only like 40% of the actual like prequel plot or prequel outline that he ever actually initially wrote. So most of the prequel stuff that's important happens in Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. Like this is like a Phantom Menace or like an Attack of the Clones. It's like there's not really anything very specific. There's not really anything that happens in here outside of like that third actor or like whatever. Like this whole film should have been a deconstruction of that character, and this whole film could have been this thing where Harley is building him up to be this larger than life myth character, and all these kinds of different things, and we could see Arthur really embrace that, and like you could have really dialed it up to 11 with the musical numbers and had Arthur's Joker like doing stage a funny Batman thing, not against Batman specifically, but just like some random ridiculous thing Joker's done in a comic book. Just pull it out of a comic. I don't read comics, so I don't have a frame of reference for that, but pull some comic thing out and like have him do it, like whatever, like have him fully embrace it, and then have that myth fully fall apart in his head and have it deconstruct him to where he becomes like this shell of a person. Have him be haunted by these crimes that he committed or something. You need to do a better job of deconstructing this character. Phillips doesn't deconstruct the character at all. Phillips basically just doesn't really tell you anything about him.
No.
Until he just decides he's not the Joker anymore, and then he just dies. Like that's it. Like that's.
I agree.
There's no value in that deconstruction as far as I'm concerned to really be the yin or be the yang to the first film's yin, if you understand my meaning. I didn't even like the first film, but like I at least appreciated the attempt. I just hated the aesthetic of the film. I really hate Philip's cynicism in the movie. There's no characters worth rooting for in this. It's a miserable time. The first movie was a miserable time at the movies. This is just the same. It's miserable. It's such a miserable experience watching.
I mean, even the music,
movie.
To your point, even the musical numbers in this movie, with the exception of maybe two of them, the one on the rooftop and the one in the courtroom with the gavel to the judge. I mean, aside from those two, they're all just kind of like karaoke versions that Joaquin's doing of like, big band kind of standards. They didn't advance the plot forward, like you said. They didn't really have a point, aside from the two that I mentioned, at least that I can think of. I mean, they were just kind of like, it was like he was trying to do something different. Just like when he put "Folie, I do," which is a French saying, into the title. Why not just call it Joker, the Two Psychos? I mean, you don't have to do a French thing or whatever. So at the end of the day, Nick and I did not like this thing, and I don't think a lot of other people did as well. Nick gave it a 3. I gave it a 4, which is a 3.5 overall from the P's on Joker. Foley, I do.
New
Nick,
contender for the worst of the
Nick,
year, I think.
It could be. Nick, play the sound drop, the one big question sound. I got a question for you.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
I will not
Would
let him take
you-
it away from us, ladies and gentlemen. I will not.
Based on the way this was ended. Now, I know you, okay? So tunnel vision here, buddy, okay? Me and you, eye to eye. The last 5 minutes or whatever of this movie, would you be intrigued enough to see if there was another one with whatever this fucking dude laughing in the background is and Harley Quinn doing whatever?
No.
Okay, me neither.
No.
I wanted to set you up to be like, maybe, and I'd be like,
I
you
wouldn't
don't
have seen
wanna
it.
fucking
Listen, this I talked
Yeah.
about this whenever I think it was when Brad was on and had me watch Horizon. Like I probably would not have watched. I'm glad I watched Horizon. I'm not glad I watched this. There are movies that you put on the schedule that there's no way on earth I would ever subject myself to it. Like I said, the first
Yeah,
movie is
sure.
such a miserable viewing experience that I had no interest in this. Even the Gaga of it, I was like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, I just wanted
didn't
it
wanna
to
see it.
do. I really wanted Phillips to surprise me with this. I mean, I love Lady Gaga. I
Would I
love
watch
the
a part
ending.
3? What would you even make a part 3 of? Like who?
Well,
who's
that's what I
gonna-
mean. It would be Harley and this new dude. That's essentially the Joker, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Phillips said he's out. He said he only had 2 movies for DC. He's done. So
Yeah, because after the reception this is getting, and after how bad it's going to bomb, they're not going to invite him back anyway.
I know, right? Let's talk about Joaquin Phoenix. So we've been doing this new segment on the show, guys, where we give the Mount Rushmore of said actor, director, genre, whatever. We talk about the 4 films collectively. We go back and forth, and we give our top 4 films that we think kind of encapsulate and harness whatever we're talking about. In this case, we're going to do Mr. Joaquin Phoenix, a very decorated actor in Hollywood. He's been around for decades. He's won the Academy Award. He's been in the conversation many, many times. Kind of has really stretched himself as far as one of the more eclectic actors. You mentioned method acting at the top. He kind of does a lot of that as well. So we're going to talk about our 4 films that we think make up the Mount Rushmore of Joaquin Phoenix. Now, Nick had this little caveat last week when we did this for, who did we do it for last week?
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, that's correct. Thank you. I was testing you, making sure you're still with us. He said whoever rated the movie higher gets to go first. That would be me.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm looking at Joaquin's filmography here. So I'm going to start with the Mount Rushmore, and I'm just going to get it out of the way. And by the way, this is a back and forth, guys. So I have a pick, Nick has a pick, and we go back and forth. But we can kind of argue our point, change each other's mind, whatever. I think that because he won the Academy Award for it, and because it is so polarizing, even this episode, that the Joker, the first one, should be on the Mount Rushmore of Joaquin Phoenix for his performance, winning the Oscar, etc.
Fine.
Oh, you're gonna go with it? Okay. I don't
I
like
mean-
it. I don't like it. These 4 are not necessarily our favorites. I don't like it, but I think it's on his Mount Rushmore. I really do.
Yeah, I think you have to put it on there just because he did win an Academy Award for it. It was a really lauded performance, and he's not. Listen, he's not bad in this either. The script
No,
just
it's
does
good
not do him any
performance.
favors.
Yeah.
The script is just really bad here. So it just kind of it is what it is. So yeah, I'm not gonna argue with you there. I'm gonna swing back at you, and I'm gonna put this is gonna be my favorite, like bar none. There's no.
Oh wow. Okay.
There's never been a better Joaquin Phoenix performance than this, and judging by what he did after this, there's never gonna be. And that's as Commodus and Gladiator. Like he is such a despicable, detestable character in that
man.
movie. Like think about cinema villains in your day, and in any movie you've ever seen where you are so happy to watch that character get their comeuppance at the end of the film. I don't think anybody, when Commodus gets run through, I mean, it's like I said, that's my favorite Phoenix performance ever.
Dude,
Like,
I'm not going to argue with that because
Yeah.
that's one of the better villain performances in all of cinema, especially modern day.
Straight
I
up
mean, he's such a
period.
good
Like, yeah.
villain you just hate. I mean, you hate that dude, you know, and it's just like
The amount of weight on the shoulders of Gladiator 2 Electric Boogaloo
I know.
is insurmountable. I can't even. I love the original Gladiator so much. Although never watched the extended cut. Last time I watched the extended cut. I had never seen it before, and I didn't realize it was the extended cut. It's bad. It's real bad. Hey, Ridley, sometimes editors are there for a reason. Stop it.
We'll be covering Gladiator 2 on this show. You excited for that one? No Joaquin, but
It's got so much weight on its shoulders.
I know.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm ready. And we're going to be doing the Ridley Scott Mount Rushmore for that one, so we'll see how it goes. Maybe Gladiator will come up again. All right, so far the Joker and Gladiator. So I'll tell you what I'll throw in here, which is probably my favorite, ironically. But I think this can easily go on the Mount Rushmore because, you know, Joaquin plays in the sandbox a lot of these very eclectic kind of abstract characters that are kind of weird and not grounded in anything that we know as a society. But in Walk the Line, he played Johnny Cash, the Man in Black. It's a biopic, and I think it's one of the few. I mean, he was in The Master too, but he was a supporting role in that. But in Walk the Line as Johnny Cash, I think also an Oscar-nominated role for him. I think that belongs. I mean, he sang all his own songs in it. I don't know, man. I got to put that one on the Mount Rushmore. That's my favorite Joaquin movie, Walk the Line. Mostly for Reese Witherspoon, but we won't get into that. I do love Joaquin as well.
Help me.
What do you think? Is that okay?
This is what I have to deal with. Please help me, please.
Yeah, is that okay?
I've never seen it, so.
Oh wow! So I guess you're okay with me having it on there then, right?
Hey, you know why this segment's a terrible idea, Gerald? Because I have not seen anything. I'm never gonna have enough movies to fill out a Mount Rushmore on most of these actors.
You really only need to have two, so I have faith in you.
Let's see.
So we got Joker, Gladiator, Walk the Line, and then you
here
can
are
round
the
out our Mount
other
Rushmore.
here are the other Joaquin Phoenix movies I've seen, and I'm gonna let you pick from this list of movies I've seen. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
He was an 8mm.
Not a Mount Rushmore.
I do love that movie. Speaking of movies that are no fun to watch, though, that's a dingy movie. Schumacher's so good.
Yeah, sure.
He was in Buffalo Soldiers, which is garbage. Hate that movie. He was in Signs, which I also despise. Hey, Shyamalan, wherever he is, up in there somewhere.
He's in the Twister.
Let's see. I'm looking. Oh, I saw Her, where he's in love with Scarlett Johansson, as we all are. Mm-hmm. So there's that one, and then there's Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo at the end. That's it. So you get to pick from those.
I would say I'm glad you actually said Her, because that's probably what I would put on as the fourth one on the Mount Rushmore.
He's good.
I mean, the incorporation of AI and his kind of subtle approach to that character, and yeah, I think that's a really tender, beautiful, kind of like dramatic performance from him. That's very like quiet and subdued, and you don't always get that in his films. And I think that's Mount Rushmore material. I'm okay with putting Her on there. Yeah. So let's put it up there. So let's say here's the Mount Rushmore of Joaquin Phoenix, according to Nick and myself, which is Joker, Gladiator, Walk the Line, and Her. So that's our four films that we think round out kind of Phoenix's career and kind of encapsulates what he's doing as an actor. A lot of good stuff in there, though. You don't like Signs, by the way?
No, Signs is terrible.
I fucking love Signs.
Signs is so bad.
No,
it's so bad.
Crazy? Move out of the way so I can see Shyamalan.
The aliens that are...
Scoot over a little bit.
God in heaven.
There he is. Yeah.
The aliens that are allergic to water come to a planet that is covered in it.
Swing away, Meryl. Swing away.
God in heaven. No.
Well,
just no.
That's it, guys. I wish they had used Gaga more in this. I'm pissed off about that. In FOLIE, I do, but what are you going to do? She's still
honestly,
a queen in my book, though.
It's you know, I mean, I'm glad that Phillips is leaving this universe behind, and we don't have to ever see another one of these. Thank the Lord. And this is not going to perform well enough to earn a sequel, because my theater, granted, I went on a Sunday night at like 7:00, but my theater was dead.
Yeah.
There was like a couple other people in there total period. But then again, that's every movie I go to see at Ithaca. I listen to other podcasts. I live in a dead area for movies, apparently, because every time I go to a movie, there ain't nobody there, G. There ain't nobody.
Well,
Every time.
Me and Madison went in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was on the Thursday opening night showing at like 5:30, and there was like 3 people in there. And I remember being surprised by that. I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be packed.
There you go.
But guess not. All right, so next week, Nick, let's get together and talk about one of these movies that's getting a little bit of Oscar buzz called Saturday Night. It is a film directed by Jason Reitman, who recently did Ghostbusters Afterlife. He's also famous for doing Juno, Up in the Air, Young Adult, Tully. He has a lot of kind of more coming-of-age kind of stories. But in this film, Saturday Night, it tells the story of the first night, 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live back in 1975. And we'll see what we think about that one. And then we get into some spooky stuff. The patrons are going to pick us some movies to watch, buddy, and horror movies.
Heaven help me.
For you. So you'll be through. I've seen some. Talk to Brad. He doesn't like you. He's throwing some Tubi stuff into the mix over there. Hey, but I'm ready.
See,
Joker
I
Folie Adu.
I can like that kind of stuff, though. I'm fine with that. Throw all that stuff in there. I probably enjoyed that stuff more than half of the stuff you would want to put in there. So,
yeah, we'll see how you do. I'm excited to do those episodes because obviously I love horror. So give it all to me, Nicholas. Joker Folie Adu was a Folie poo poo. Is what I'm saying. Sorry about that, man. I was hoping it would at least be better than the first one, but ironically, I like this less than the first one, which is not good. I think I gave the first one like a 5.
I can't remember what I gave the first one.
So anyway, we'll get together next week. We'll talk about Saturday Night. Nick, I love you, brother. Your shades, you look good, man. You look good over there.
Sorry, I'm over. I'm watching Daniel Jones highlights over on Twitter now because G-Men won today. Sorry about your Panthers again. Just for their general existence. I mean, hey, think about this. You probably better go to some home games later this year for like 7 cents.
I will. You know, your Giants blocked the field goal at the end. They would have lost. They blocked the field goal and returned it. Did you know that?
No, I didn't see the end of the game because I was watching Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, well, what a fucking trade-off that was, huh?
Uh-huh.
All right, well.
I'm going to actually watch the end of the game right now, as a matter of fact, because
it was exciting.
I have YouTube TV now, so I have it, like YouTube TV has a DVR function, so I basically have it in there.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. All right, brother, I love you. I'll talk to you next week when we talk about Saturday Night. Until then, keep your pants on and keep your shades on. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Do something to make the world a better place out there, everybody. I love y'all. See you next week.
I'll see you next week, man.